Jay Leno once said his favorite car of all time cost him less than what most people spend on a new pickup truck. Meanwhile, sitting right next to it is a McLaren F1 worth $20 million that he calls the greatest car of the 20th century. So what makes one car more special than another to a guy who literally owns everything? Today, we're breaking down the 5 cars that Jay Leno treasures above all others. If you're as obsessed with legendary car collections as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we've got more incredible garage tours coming your way. Now, most people think Jay Leno's favorite cars would be the flashiest, most expensive machines in his collection. But that's where they're wrong. See, Leno doesn't just collect cars, he understands them. Every bolt, every design choice, every piece of history. And his favorites aren't chosen because of their price tags. They're chosen because of their stories. Today, we're diving deep into the 5 cars that Jay Leno himself has called his absolute favorites. And trust me, some of these picks are going to surprise you. We're talking about cars that represent everything from groundbreaking engineering to personal memories that shaped his life. Let's start with number 5 and work our way up to his all-time favorite. Number 5. The Lotus Elan, the underdog that stole his heart. You know what's interesting about Jay Leno? The guy who can afford any car ever made once said his favorite car was a Lotus Elan. Not a Ferrari, not a Lamborghini, a Lotus Elan. Now, if you're not familiar with the Elan, don't worry, most people aren't. This little British roadster from the 1960s wasn't trying to be the fastest or the most luxurious. It was trying to be something else entirely. Pure driving joy. The Elan weighed about as much as a golf cart. Just 1,500 pounds soaking wet. But here's the genius part. Lotus didn't try to compensate with a massive engine. Instead, they gave it a tiny 1.6-liter 4-cylinder that made maybe 126 horsepower on a good day. Sounds pathetic, right? Wrong. See, when you've got a car that weighs nothing and handles like it's on rails, you don't need 500 horsepower to have fun. You need precision. You need balance. You need that connection between man and machine that most modern cars have completely lost. Leno has talked about how the Elan taught him what driving was really supposed to feel like. No power steering, no electronic nannies, no computer telling you what to do. Just you, the car, and the road. When you turned the wheel, the car turned. When you pressed the gas, it responded instantly. When you hit the brakes, it stopped exactly where you wanted it to. This is why the Elan made such an impression on him early in his collecting journey. It wasn't about showing off or going fast in a straight line. It was about understanding that sometimes the best things come in small packages. The Elan also represents something deeper in Leno's philosophy: respect for engineering excellence, regardless of budget. Colin Chapman, the founder of Lotus, had a famous motto: simplify, then add lightness. The Elan embodied that philosophy perfectly. But here's what makes this even more interesting. Leno's love for the Elan shows how his tastes have evolved over the decades. This was a car he favored earlier in his collecting career, proving that even for someone with unlimited resources, sometimes the most memorable experiences come from the most unexpected places. Number 4. The 1934 Duesenberg Walker Coupe. American luxury at its peak. Now, we're stepping into serious territory. The 1934 Duesenberg Walker Coupe isn't just a car, it's a rolling piece of American history. And when Jay Leno talks about this machine, you can hear the reverence in his voice. First, let's talk about what made Duesenberg special. These weren't just expensive cars. They were the most expensive cars money could buy in America during the 1930s. We're talking about vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. The Walker Coupe was custom built by one of the most prestigious coach builders of the era, and only a handful were ever made. But Leno doesn't love this car just because it's rare. He loves it because it represents American craftsmanship at its absolute pinnacle. Every piece of this car was hand-built by master craftsmen who took pride in their work. The engine alone was a work of art, a massive straight 8 that produced more power than most cars of the era could even dream of. Here's what's fascinating. This car was built during the Great Depression, when most Americans were struggling just to put food on the table. Yet Duesenberg was creating these incredible machines for the ultra-wealthy. It's a snapshot of a very different America, one where craftsmanship and luxury knew no bounds. Leno has mentioned that driving the Duesenberg is like taking a trip back in time. The car weighs over 5,000 pounds, but it glides down the road with a smoothness that modern cars struggle to match. The steering is heavy, the brakes require planning, and everything about the driving experience demands your full attention. But that's exactly what makes it special. This isn't a car you can drive while texting or thinking about work. It commands respect. It demands that you be present in the moment and appreciate the engineering marvel you're piloting. The Walker Coupe also represents Leno's appreciation for American automotive history. While European cars often get all the attention from collectors, Leno recognizes that America produced some truly exceptional vehicles during the pre-war era. The Duesenberg proves that American luxury could compete with anything coming out of Europe. What really sets this car apart in Leno's collection is its storytelling ability. Every time he takes it out, people stop and stare. They ask questions. They want to know about the era when it was built, the people who owned cars like this, and what America was like during that time period. Number 3. The 1909 Baker Electric, the future that almost was. Here's where Leno's collection gets really interesting. The 1909 Baker Electric isn't just one of his favorites. It's also his wife's favorite car in the entire collection. And once you understand what this car represents, you'll see why it holds such a special place in their hearts. First, let's address the elephant in the room. This is an electric car from 1909. That's right, over 110 years ago, you could buy a clean, quiet, electric vehicle that would take you around town without any fuss, noise, or pollution. The Baker Electric was the Tesla of its era, except it actually worked better than most of the gas cars available at the time. Think about that for a second. In 1909, electric cars weren't some futuristic concept. They were a practical reality. The Baker Electric could travel about 40 miles on a single charge, which was more than enough for most people's daily needs. It was quiet, clean, and incredibly reliable. No hand cranking to start it. No dealing with the temperamental nature of early gasoline engines. Leno has talked about how the Baker Electric represents one of automotive history's great what-if moments. What if electric cars had continued to develop instead of being pushed aside by gasoline engines? What if we had pursued this technology 100 years ago, instead of waiting until the 21st century to rediscover it? But the Baker Electric is more than just a historical curiosity. It's also an incredibly well-engineered machine. The build quality is exceptional, with beautiful woodwork and luxurious appointments that put many modern cars to shame. This wasn't a cheap alternative to gasoline cars. It was often more expensive and was marketed to discerning customers who wanted the best. The fact that this is his wife's favorite car in the collection tells you something important about both the car and the Lenos. It's not about horsepower or speed or showing off. It's about appreciating intelligent engineering and recognizing that sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. Leno often uses the Baker Electric to make a point about automotive progress. We like to think that cars have gotten steadily better over the past century, but in some ways, we've actually gone backwards. The Baker Electric was quiet, clean, and efficient, qualities that took us another 100 years to rediscover and prioritize. This car also represents Leno's appreciation for automotive oddities and forgotten technologies. While most collectors focus on the obvious classics, Leno seeks out the cars that tell interesting stories about roads not taken and technologies that were ahead of their time. Number 2. The 1994 McLaren F1, the greatest car of the 20th century. When Jay Leno calls something the greatest car of the 20th century, you better believe he's not throwing those words around lightly. The McLaren F1 isn't just his second favorite car, it represents everything he believes a perfect automobile should be. Let's start with the basics, because even the basics of the F1 are extraordinary. This car was designed by Gordon Murray, a man who approached automotive engineering like a Formula One designer, because that's exactly what he was. Every single component was designed with one goal in mind: creating the ultimate driving machine. The F1's engine is a naturally aspirated BMW V12 that produces 627 horsepower. Now, that might not sound like much compared to modern supercars that push 1,000 horsepower, but here's the thing. The F1 weighs just 2,500 pounds. That's lighter than most modern sports cars, and the power-to-weight ratio is still incredible by today's standards. But the real genius of the F1 isn't just its performance numbers. It's the attention to detail that went into every aspect of the car. The driver sits in the center, with passenger seats flanking them on either side. This wasn't just for show. It provides the best possible driving position and weight distribution. The F1 was also built without compromise. Murray and his team didn't care about cost, regulations, or mass production. They simply asked, what would the perfect car look like? The result was a machine that cost over $1 million when new and took years to develop. Leno has talked about how the F1 represents the pinnacle of analog automotive engineering. There are no electronic driving aids, no computer-controlled systems, no artificial enhancements. It's just pure mechanical engineering, executed at the highest possible level. What makes this even more impressive is that McLaren only built 106 F1s total. This wasn't a car designed to make money. It was designed to make a statement. And that statement was, this is what's possible when you don't compromise. The F1 also holds a special place in automotive history because it proved that a small, focused company could create something that the major manufacturers couldn't match. Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Porsche all had decades of supercar experience, but none of them had created anything quite like the F1. For Leno, the F1 represents the perfect marriage of engineering excellence and driving purity. It's fast enough to satisfy anyone's need for speed, but it's also involving enough to reward skilled driving. It doesn't do the work for you. It amplifies your abilities as a driver. This is why Leno has said that McLaren is his favorite car company. They approach automotive engineering with the same mindset that created the F1. No compromises, no shortcuts, just the relentless pursuit of perfection. Number 1. The 1972 Mercedes-Benz 600 compressor, his favorite car of all time. And here we are, Jay Leno's favorite car of all time. Not a Ferrari, not a Lamborghini, not even the McLaren F1. His absolute favorite is a 1972 Mercedes-Benz 600 compressor, and the reason why tells you everything you need to know about what really drives this man's passion for automobiles. First, let's talk about what the Mercedes 600 actually is, because most people have never heard of it. This was Mercedes-Benz's flagship sedan during the 1960s and 70s, and it was built without any regard for cost. We're talking about a car that was more expensive than a house in most parts of America. The 600 was powered by a massive 6.3-liter V8 engine, but that's not what made it special. What made it special was the hydraulic system that controlled everything from the windows to the seats to the trunk lid. This wasn't just power steering and power brakes. This was a car where nearly every function was hydraulically assisted. But here's where the story gets personal, and this is why the 600 holds the top spot in Leno's heart. When he was young, before he was famous, before he had money, Leno worked at a Mercedes-Benz dealership. One day, he was asked to deliver a Mercedes 600 to a customer, and that drive changed his life. Leno has talked about how that experience opened his eyes to what a truly exceptional automobile could be. This wasn't just transportation, it was engineering art. The way the car rode, the way it handled, the attention to detail in every component. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. That moment planted a seed that would grow into his lifelong obsession with automotive excellence. The 600 showed him that cars could be more than just appliances. They could be expressions of human ingenuity and craftsmanship at their finest. The 600 also represents something that's largely been lost in modern automotive manufacturing, so the willingness to build something without compromise. Mercedes didn't care how much the 600 cost to produce or how few they would sell. They simply wanted to build the best car possible, and cost was no object. This philosophy is evident in every aspect of the car. The doors are incredibly heavy because they're built like bank vaults. The ride quality is extraordinary because the suspension system is incredibly sophisticated. The interior is appointed with the finest materials because Mercedes wanted everything to be perfect. What makes this even more meaningful is that the 600 connects Leno to his roots. This isn't just about owning an expensive car. It's about honoring the experience that started his journey into the automotive world. Every time he drives his 600, he's reminded of that young man who was amazed by what human engineering could accomplish. The 600 also embodies Leno's core philosophy about cars. They should be driven and enjoyed, not just collected and displayed. Despite its value and rarity, Leno regularly drives his 600 and maintains it in perfect working condition. For him, a car that isn't driven is just an expensive sculpture. This is what separates Jay Leno from other collectors. He doesn't just own cars, he understands them, respects them, and appreciates the human stories behind them. The Mercedes 600 isn't his favorite because it's the most expensive or the rarest. It's his favorite because it represents the moment when he truly understood what makes automobiles special. What this tells us about Jay Leno. Looking at these 5 cars together, you start to understand what really drives Jay Leno's passion for automobiles. It's not about money, status, or showing off. It's about appreciating human ingenuity, engineering excellence, and the stories that connect us to our automotive heritage. Each of these cars represents a different aspect of what makes automobiles special. The Lotus Elan shows us that driving joy doesn't require massive power. The Duesenberg Walker Coupe demonstrates American craftsmanship at its finest. The Baker Electric reminds us that innovation often comes in unexpected forms. The McLaren F1 proves that perfection is possible when you refuse to compromise. And the Mercedes 600 connects it all back to the personal experience that started the journey. This is why Jay Leno's collection is so respected in the automotive world. He doesn't just buy cars. He curates experiences and preserves history. Every vehicle in his garage has a story to tell, and Leno makes sure those stories are heard. These 5 favorites also show us that true automotive appreciation transcends categories, eras, and price points. A 1909 electric car can be just as fascinating as a modern supercar. A simple British roadster can be just as rewarding as a $1 million exotic. It's all about understanding what each car was trying to accomplish and appreciating the human effort that went into creating it. So there you have it, Jay Leno's top 5 favorite cars and the stories behind why they mean so much to him. Which one surprised you the most? Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about Leno's choices. And if you want to see more deep dives into legendary car collections, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because we've got some incredible garage tours coming up that you definitely don't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.